Hello, I'm Dr. Jigare Pancha, an occupational therapist. So here I have got you the another video of infections and tumors of musculoskeletal system. There are many more videos to know more things. Stay tuned to our channel. So in today's class, we'll be discussing this treatment indications and surgical management and further other things for the infections of the bone and the musculoskeletal system. In the previous class, we just discussed about the delay first presentation about the infected non-union clinical symptoms and diagnosis, diagnostic procedures, medical history, and clinical findings, which it talks about the walking difficulty and load dependent pain or predominancy. Also, the absence of periosteum surrounding and the non-union experience massive destruction maybe due to the severity of the trauma. So there are certain other things which talks about the issues. Also, functional status assessment of the lower leg, that is foot, knee, clinical findings, that limping or use of the crutches, impaired mobility, occasionally uh, intermittent fistulas, or also complete fistula symptoms. In the previous lecture, also we talked about various clinical symptoms of infected pseudoarthrosis, pseudoarthrosis, in which I have mentioned three zones. That is zone zone without fistulas, intermittent fistula, and purulent fistula system, means the pus coming out of it. And laboratory test, we talk about the infection parameters with the white blood cells, CRP, which are often normal or only moderately abnormal, and that's all. And the imaging, which we talk about the X-ray, standard X-rays. In this, the most important basis of the diagnosis, means the X-ray. Standard X-rays are the most important ways of the diagnosis, in addition to the follow-up examination. CT scans, three-phase anti-granulocyte scintigraphy. You can say spectral CT scans again, then MRI, then fistulography. So these are all the investigations which we talked previously in the previous class, and about the fatigue fracture following insufficient bridging of an infected non-union by means of analogous spongioplasty. The X-rays in four views, which I have mentioned in the previous class, that is with the view of the anterior posture, with the view from the front inferior, with the view from lateral, with the view from the front exterior, and and in that the B view which I talked about, that reveals with the full extent of the defect. So here there are certain treatment indications, that is the incomplete or bone consolidation, usually with loose or partly broken osteosynthesis material, sequestrum formation, fistulation, chronic infectious arthritis, bone defect, soft tissue defect. Then you have surgical management. So these are the indications and certain forms which talks about the treatment modalities of these issues, and also certain procedures linked with it. So in today's lecture will be more of talking about the surgical procedures which are being conducted with this form of treatment, and further things in it. So in this surgical treatment, that is about debridement and sample collections, which talks about the other forms of it. So here, so there are certain things which are important, that is resection of the fistula and abscess membranes after staining, then complete metal removal, including broken screws upwards, drill bits, remaining cement beads, and many more. Removal of all sequestra, and so as such there is a removal and debridement, means cleaning of the further structures which are present. Again, sequestra or sequestrum again. So sequestrum is a noun, actually the plural, and sequestra is in a medicine term. So that is, by the definition, is a piece of dead bone tissues occurring within a diseased or injured bone, typically in chronic osteomyelitis. So basically osteomyelitis is it talks about the infections of the bone. So removal of all the sequestra is very much important. then resection of the necrotic bone that is characterized by the absence of bleeding points and major splintering when struck with a chisel. So that is more of a surgical procedure. He doesn't deal with it though in this way. Just for the explanation again, the information about in this class actually. And here are some views for you to know how this operation are being conducted for the external fixation, open reduction, and further to dealing with the infectious bone. So there's a resection of the necrotic bone which you see here in this figure, and that is characterized by the absence of a bleeding points and major splintering and struck with the chisel, as I explained before. So to ensure the bone debridement is complete by releasing the uh, tourniquet at the end. So in difficult situation, extensive segmental resection in preparation for the segment transport, that is shown here in this figure. If there is a bone graft, uh, if you see here, that is bone grafting measures. So the bone is being taken out in this. So there is a 52-year-old male with a so the figure A talks about a 4.5 years after healing. Spontaneously reactivated infected non-union soft tissue defect in scar zone originating from a closed leg flap, from a cross leg flap, block resection 8 centimeters in length, proximal corticotomy, then distraction in the initial phase, large soft tissue defect following completion of the distraction, soft tissue defect closed without plastic surgery due to docking problems, decortication and plate osteosynthesis, situation and tendons, and the other consolidation distraction sections. So this is how it talks about the further things, and in the next slide. So in this lecture there are two slides. So in the first and second slide is almost of a combination of the explanation. So some of the grafting measures which I talked about, that the goal should always be the full length reconstruction depending on the extent of the defects, options which include certain analogous cancellous bone grafting or segment transport using uh, Elizaros fixator for the defects with the length losses and ranging from 4 centimeter to more than 15 centimeters. So this is more Elizaron operation, let me tell you, is majorly conducted for the individuals with congenital issues, and because that they become dwarf and there is a misalignment of the bone, and also further curvature of the bone. So due to the Elizari treatment, even the height is being improved. So that is a major form of it. Then procedure, then a free vasculation bone grafts with and without simultaneous shift of the muscle and the skin areas, bone allografts, bone morphogenic protein, that is BMP 2 and 7, then bone replacement materials, and there are certain specific treatment options again, early or delay infection after intramedullary nailing, and prognosis and complications of this. So there are further things which I'll be discussing in the next slide and related to this. So initially we talked about the in the next slide we're talking about the stabilization. So this is how the debridement and certain sample taking and the bone grafting is done. So this is how you see that, because as in our point of view, anybody who is having this kind of graft present in the bone with this much of gap in it, so here there will be a very much issue later, obviously not now but later in the course of weight bearing and in the course of a dynamic activities like walking, running, jumping, climbing stairs, majorly while they descend the stairs, because while descending the stairs there are double forces acting together, that is the gravitational force, and obviously you are coming down, so the double force act, so this causes a much of a instability in the bone and the weight loading area of the linear uh, line of the weight bearing of the bone. So this is the other issues which we see here in the form of weight bearing. So we have to understand these certain points and how is to see that how it is to be incorporated in the daily life, because again at this point we cannot expect the patient to go to the job and to do his work, and even the IADL is difficult. So basically BADL or personal ADL is very much important to be retained in the functional input in the functional criteria of the patient and the performance area of the patient. So that's how certain forms are conducted. So the further we'll discuss about the stabilization of the area with the external fixation with the two-stage procedure and locking intramedullary nailing. So this is all what we will discuss in the next slide, and further bone grafting measures we'll also be discussing in the next slide. So here, as I told about stabilization options. So here, which include intermittent stabilization with external fixators, a two-stage procedure with temporary immobilization, that is orthosis, in the interim, and the interim provides time for additional clarification and curative antibiotic treatment in the absence of foreign material with difficult to treat bacteria. Unlocking intermediate nailing during the second stage as an example for the tubular bone reconstruction that enables early full mobilization. So this is what you see in this figure over here. Is a 47 years old male infected non-union with enterococci. So two-stage procedure with difficult to treat bacteria. Preparatory debridement, metal removal and curative antibiotic therapy for 6 weeks. Discontinuation of the antibiotic for 2 weeks. So figure A talks about the preoperative scar zone and defect. B talks about the decortication and interlocking nail, lateral analogous cancellous graft, the free scapula bone flap with bridge the visible open gap. C here again talks about the post-operative following the free scapular flap with bone graft fragment inserted medially into bone defect and fixated. And D talks about the 7 months securely bridge full weight bearing for past 3 months and scar zone on pre-tibial skin fully restored. So there are certain things which you see in figure C and figure D, talking the areas of it. So here, if you see the post-operatively following free scapular scar flap, sorry. So here, if you see in the bone grafting measures, the goal should always be in the full length reconstruction. So it is in the figure. If you see, there are certain areas, then certain procedures which have been shown and how it is being conducted, as well as the scapular flap. So that depends on the extent of the defects, and the options may include that analogous cancellous bone, which I talked before. Before I just mentioned the headings. In this, I'll be talking about it in deep further. So the goal should always be in a full length reconstruction depending on the extent of defects. Options include like analogous cancellous bone defect, preferably from the posterior iliac crest on the same side. The defects with no or only limited loss of length. As an alternative and complementary measure, bone meal harvested by intramedullary ramming of the femur, which can be used again. So if there is a segmental defect, it is advantageous to distract the defect zone somewhat initially so that it can be compressed again even after 6 to 8. With this, I'm just telling, maybe not in our domain, but I'm just giving for the information so you guys understand how these procedures are conducted. And if they are taking this long, say for example, as I mentioned, the timings in it, that the compression again after 6 to 8 weeks. So this gives us an idea about our therapy, that how to go with the therapy, and we also know the exactly prognostic measures of the therapy, because even if the patient asks you, sir, when will I'll be talking, or means I'll be walking, or when I can weight be around my limb. So we should be clear about our things and to answer the patient in that way, because if we are not able to answer the patient that way, it means we are not confident. So if you know the procedure, we feel confident that what we are doing and where we are heading and how to plan the therapy and how to be enable the patient to be more functional in his daily activities. So thus it can be assumed that the graft will begin to stabilize the defect zone by 1.5 to 2 months. Then reconstruction around the central intermediate nailing, which you see here in the figure B, and the silicone tube or cement nail reduces bone graft volume and supports the long bone repair. So So as you can see here in the image, which is showing the silicon tube or cement nail. Further, the segment transport using an Elizari fixator for defects with the length losses ranging from about 4 centimeters to more than 15 centimeters. So the method usually heals skin defects, scar zones simultaneously, because the segment transport procedure stretches healthy skin too, which also seen in the figure in the previous slide. So here if you see, there are certain procedures, that is extensive resection of the affected bone segment to ensure that the adjoining osteomes are vital. Then metadiaphyseal corticotomy without severing the medullary vessels if possible. Then distracting of the corticotomy site by about 1 mm, or there are 10, maybe for 10 days before starting daily distractions of about 1 mm in 4 to 6 stages. So weekly checkups during transport, following completion of the transport, increasing weight bearing with a fixator is very important for us. As a thumb rule, to calculate the time required for the distraction zone to consolidate, that is 10 days waiting period plus distraction time 1 mm per day plus 5 months distraction period, that is plus or minus 2 months. So the docking site for the transport segment must be monitored separately. As soon as the distraction is complete, it must be considered whether additional measures such as decortication, spongioplasty, or osteosynthesis should be done at the same time as the distraction to ensure consolidation. So free vascularized bone grafts with or without simultaneous shift of muscle and skin areas. In this, the active bridging of the defect starts with the contact to living bone with adequate stability immediately following transplantation of vital bone material. It is also possible to pursue all vital bone areas in the defect zone and to adapt the bone transplant precisely to the defect. So it is often necessary to simultaneously reconstruct the soft tissue, often with a free muscle or flap. In order to ensure healing, it is usually advisable to supplement the bone graft without analogous cancellous bone grafting. In the bone grafts which are not suitable for the defect filling, so allogenic cancellous bone is not very osteoinductive again. So cortical allografts are usually for bridging tumors, defects, but are susceptible to infection and not suitable for those applications involving the infections. Then bone morphogenic protein, that is BMP or 2 and 7. So while the osteoinductivity of BMP has been proven, success in the clinical applications has been disappointing when its price high is considered. So these are certain things which are of the surgical point of view and not in our point of view. But just for the information, we should know these things, that how things are conducted. Also, the bone replacement materials, like the positive effects of all other bone replacement materials in clinical use, are significantly less well documented again. So there are certain things which has to be considered in this form, and how we should take care of the other things which are occurring at the initial stage. Also, there are certain specific treatment options, that is early or delay infection after intramedullary nailing. So if during the course of fracture healing a trend towards bridging is observed along with simultaneous progressive infection, for example fistula formation, then it is again advisable, at this point means it is advisable to perform local debridement with collection of tissue samples, initiate empirical suppressive antibiotic therapy following tissue collection, adjust therapy following receipt of the biological bacteriological results, and continue treatment until adequate bridging has been achieved. Also remove the nail and ring the intramedullary cavity, or and to irrigate and depending on stability, applying external fixators, insert an intramedullary nail coated with antibiotic cement, or use an adapted orthosis. So there are certain things which are helpful. Also prognosis and complications, if we talk about that, the targeted procedures performed by sufficiently experienced obviously the sufficient experienced teams like orthopedic surgeons will perform their infectious disease specialists and the plastic surgeons are nearly always necessary in this procedure and always successful in the stable reconstruction of an extensive infected defect non-union over a corresponding prolonged period. So sometimes up to maybe a year. So the functional outcome of the lower limb depending on the status of the foot and knee, which I just mentioned before in the previous lectures, the foot and knee, that how it can be different. Like I'll just repeat again for you that the functional status assessment of the lower leg. So it is important in a view of what are uh, often very elaborate reconstruction efforts, sometimes lasting more than 1 year. So it involves deciding between a reconstruction attempt and an amputation. So there are certain factors in favor of preservation about foot and knee. So I like to give an example of foot and knee. So in the foot, it is intact plantar sensitivity, no or correctable pes equinus, pain-free ankle joint, and above average mobility or fixed at right angles. That is about foot. About knee is above average mobility, no severe or painful osteoarthritis, no or correctable malpositions, that is axis or rotation. The other regions of the body to be reconstructed and must be similarly assessed from a functional standpoint. So this was an example of the foot and knee for this in the prognosis. Also, during the complications, there are important things to see, that is each treatment method has its own rate of complications again. So because multiple methods are often combined, these rates add up. So typically, there are certain scenarios which may include like a recurrent infection in a defect zone, failure of a free flap, problems with the osseous union of a transported segment in the case of distraction osteogenesis, and fatigue fractures following defect reconstruction using cancellous grafts alone, and pes equinus often develops as a result of inadequate functional support. So these are certain things which is to be taken in consideration of the during treating the infections of uh, infected bone after the fracture or because of any other reasons as such. So because of the infections, there obviously there is a very high chances of non-union, and that ultimately affects the healing of the things. Then the next, so this was for the today's lecture. And in the next lecture, we will be starting from the late first presentation about chronic post-traumatic osteomyelitis, and further other clinical pictures, laboratory-based imaging, treatment indication, surgical management of it, and the intramedullary knee and other things. So that's all was for the today's lecture, and we'll be continuing this in the next lecture. Thank you. I have mentioned the references here for you to go and to have the deeper knowledge of the subject and to clear any doubts if you have any.